Well, the Industrial and Commercial Use of Energy Conference kicks off in Cape Town today. The Open Exchange team decided to look at diversifying South Africa's energy mix. Now we welcome Evan Rice into our Cape Town studio. Good morning to you, Evan. Let's hear more about this latest conference and where we are with our energy state of play.
Sure. Morning, David. Look, I think exciting time for the energy sector in South Africa. Renewables are really showing what can be done. I think the program, the big renewable procurement program, has really been a world-leading program. But I think we've still got some way to go as well. I think there's opportunities for South Africa that to date haven't yet been captured, and that's where we really should be focusing on going forward.
Well, also in our Cape Town studio is Wido Schnabel. We're welcoming him to his Business Development Manager for Sub-Saharan Africa. Diversifying the energy mix, Wido, your take?
Well, speaking for Jinko or for the solar industry as such, I think we are blessed with a continent with the highest sun radiation. So we really should harvest that resource. I think we in South Africa always think resources are in the ground. But actually the biggest resource is up there in the sky, and we can really harvest that energy for a very good price. We've seen in round 3 that the prices have come down in the IPP program, and I think we are cheaper than new coal. That is very clear. And therefore there's an energy source that we really can reap for us in South Africa, but all over Africa.
Wido, it's a Tumi show here. You said the resource that we have in terms of solar energy is up in the sky. What happens when that resource in the sky is not there? I mean, doesn't that give somewhat of a challenge when it comes to the renewable energy prospect?
Well, let me answer you this way. No energy generation method has got storage. And the storage for a generator is the diesel in the tank, or for a coal fire plant it's the stockpiles that they've got outside. And you know that if it rains heavily and these stockpiles get wet, we also have got problems with coal fire plants. It's a question of fuel, and our fuel just gets up in the morning at 6 o'clock and goes down in the evening at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So that's our fuel source, and we need to find storage mechanisms, and the whole world is actually looking for finding storage solutions. So battery is one thing, compressed air, but most common is also hydro pump storage. We've got hydro pump storage stations here in South Africa, like Palmit. And we have got quite a good opportunity in thinking out of the box. We've got mines in South Africa that are very deep, over 2,000 meters. And we could use them, for example, as a pump storage solution. So during the day, we pump that water up. And at night, when the sun doesn't shine, we actually let that water flow back. And that's a very good source of storing energy until there is other methods to be more effective. So I think, even a coal fire plant, if the coal is not there, you don't have energy. So our energy, at least we know for certain, will be there for many, many decades. And the fuel price of our energy source is free.
Evan, perhaps you could answer this question first, and then Wido could perhaps have a go at it. What puzzles me is that, I was told in one of our earlier discussions on the show that we have the second highest sun exposure in South Africa after Chile in the world. So we're a natural for solar generation. What's the problem? Is it, clearly the technology is there. We see the new housing developments with solar panels on the roofs. That's obviously a very good idea. Is the problem not the technology? Is it investment in the technology? Is it the scale that is defeating us? And the other fact, of course, is that the sun may be there all the time, but it's not entirely reliable, so as Tumi pointed out. What's the problem?
David, I don't think there's actually any problem. I think it's just been a factor of changing economics. Until our energy prices started to go up, our electricity prices in particular, solar wasn't competitive. But the cost of solar has come down so dramatically over the last 5 years globally, and you can see that in the cost of the prices from the round 1 to round 3 on solar PV came down by more than 60%. So the technology is suddenly economically competitive, as Wido was saying. It's going to be cheaper than the average price of the new big coal-fired power stations. So I think we're really seeing an energy revolution just starting to happen. And I think a number of municipalities around the country are starting to put rules in place for people to put solar panels on their roof. And I think 10 years from now, the energy market in South Africa is going to look drastically different from what we see today.
Wido, you want to pick up on that same question? Even saying there's no problem, it was a question of cost. And now, because the other costs are going up, it becomes affordable. We should see huge expansion in this sector then.
Well, I think it will explode in the next few years because of prices have come down. If you think about 6 years back, you paid about $6 per watt of a solar panel. Today you pay 60 cents. So, there is a huge difference in pricing. Thanks to Europe that have funded this development through their feed-in tariffs. And the electricity user in Europe has to pay these kind of prices for the next 20 years. We were lucky that we are on the game now and can reap these benefits of cheap solar PV. So I think there's huge opportunity. We've got challenges where we have got monopolies and state-owned monopolies that needs to change. And we also have got challenges because for the local governments and the municipalities, electricity sales is one of their biggest income. So we need to find different ways how to fund municipalities and give the opportunities to solar. I personally think if we do that, the extra work that we get, the more employment that we get, and we reckon that between 250 to 300,000 jobs can be created in the solar energy over the next 3 years or 5 years, that will compensate for the income loss that the municipalities will have during selling of power. But definitely there is one of the issues that we need to deal with. And we can also make some savings. If you think solar is the only distributed generation method, so you don't really need to enhance the grid, where we know we have got challenges in our current grid. So if you can generate power where it is needed, you need less grid.
Let me direct this question at Evan. When we look at Jinko, this is going to be the first company, or the company's first manufacturing plant outside of China. What is South Africa's competitive advantage? And perhaps tell us a bit more about how the workforce is made up. So are we seeing Chinese employees, what percentage, and how much of that percentage will be made up of South African employees?
I'm afraid I think it's better to pass that over to Wido, as he works for Jinko. I run an organization called Green Cape down here in Cape Town.
All right, then Wido, can you pick that up for us, please?
Sure. We have employed over 200 people by now. By the end of the year, we will have 250 staff working in 3 shifts, and that is for a solar manufacturing plant of a capacity of 120 at a push 150 megawatts. And I think we have got 7 Chinese colleagues left that are still working and ensuring also that information between our plant and our other plants in China is a smooth communication flow, and we stick to international standards that we agree to. So it's a very high quality product, so we must assure that worldwide we've got the same kind of standard. But as you can see, majority of our employees are all South Africans, newly employed. It's new jobs, sustainable jobs here in the Cape. We could have gone into any other province, but we just chose the Cape here. And that's also due to skilled labor, which is very important. We need a harbor, which is also important to bring in our goods. So I think there is huge opportunity for others to come in as well. I have spoken to many other solar PV manufacturers that are really interested to bring in their factories into South Africa. But they need some commitment from government, some guideline. And we've actually lost one of the big opportunities in round 4, where we ask government to put in a clear rule that solar panels has to be laminated in South Africa. So with that, we guarantee that this kind of job gets done in South Africa. But unfortunately, that briefing note wasn't sent out. And it's quite a setback for this industry, because I know about 2 or 3 other Chinese manufacturers that wanted to build a factory that are now again on the waiting position. And we really need to get DTI and DOE work on this and make it clear that we need local content, and we need that local content to be true to happen in South Africa. So we really need that lamination process happening here, then people will invest.
If I may come in there, Wido, you know, I really think it's an opportunity that goes beyond solar as well. I think we're seeing the same thing in wind. You know, there's been a big investment in Atlantis by Gestamp Renewable Industries, setting up a wind tower manufacturing plant, which is under construction currently. But there are a number of other players waiting in the wings with things like the blades for wind turbines, that they're really just looking for some policy certainty. I think the IRP revisions that came out in draft earlier this year or late last year gave some mixed signals to the market, and those are the kind of opportunities that I think we're still missing out on potentially, that we could accelerate. You know, South Africa's got a choice to make here. We can pay a couple of percentage points more and make sure that we get a lot of local jobs, and that much more of the equipment is manufactured locally, or we can continue to import cheap equipment and send all the cash offshore. And I think it's a pretty clear case of what we'd really like to see happening in South Africa.
Thanks to Wido Schnabel, he's Business Development Manager for Sub-Saharan Africa at Jinko Solar, and Evan Rice, who's CEO of Green